Hello and welcome to the 49ers First and 10 podcast. 10 minutes of the most up-to-date 49ers news first thing in the morning. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald, and I'm with 49ers team reporter, Lindsay Polares. Today we've got updates for you from the free agency period as the Niners have been making moves on both sides of the ball, bringing in a new quarterback, re-signing a wide receiver, a new and re-signing of a couple offensive linemen, and welcoming 4 new faces to the 49ers defense. So, Lindsay, moves are being made. Tell me what your thoughts are from this second wave of free agency signings and the biggest things that stand out to you.
There are no slow days at 49ers HQ right now because, like you said, there are new players coming in. It feels like almost every day. The second wave of free agency signings did arguably have the biggest impact player included in, and that was, of course, Leonard Floyd. We heard about him since really the first day of the new league year. He was finally in the building on Monday. He's a veteran entering year 9 in the league. He's already got a Super Bowl ring. He won that with the Rams, spent 3 seasons in the NFC West. And we actually got to sit down with him yesterday, as well as do a short press conference with him and all of the rest of the 49ers beat reporters. I thought one of the coolest things he said was that the 49ers really stood out to him because they were very direct in their approach to him. They made it known that, hey, we want you here in the Bay Area. That very much appealed to him. He also spoke about wanting to come to a team that is ready for a Super Bowl run, which I think is definitely what all 49ers fans want to hear. He's here because he wants to be on a contending team, a team that's going to make a deep run into the playoffs. Also spoke about being able to go against a very physical offense. He pointed out George Kittle specifically. He said that going up against an offense like the 49ers is just going to continue to mold him into a really great player. One of the things that stands out, not necessarily from the stat sheet, but just from his resume, is that Leonard Floyd has not missed a game in 6 years. One of the best qualities about him is that he's healthy and available. And, obviously a lot of nicks and bruises go on throughout the season, but he has managed to play through every one of them for the last 6 seasons. Then, like you mentioned, Chase Lucas coming over from the Detroit Lions. He is a quarterback, but really an impact player on special teams. Played 230 snaps on special teams for Detroit last year. We've got linebacker Devontae Campbell also headed to the Bay Area. He comes over from the Green Bay Packers. He's being brought in to add some linebacker depth. He had an all-pro year in 2021. Got Brandon Parker, an offensive lineman. He was drafted by the Raiders in 2018. A lot of his experience is at the right tackle position. Only appeared in 5 games last season, but because the 49ers have their right tackle and left tackle positions secured, it's likely that we're going to see him as a depth piece for the 49ers offensive line. Then we've got Isaac Yiadom. He is a cornerback, had 14 pass breakups and interception last year. Also a really big impact player on special teams. PFF gave him an 80.4 coverage grade, so just adding more depth to the 49ers secondary. And then, like you mentioned, Josh Dobbs. This is a quarterback that the 49ers actually faced in week 4 of the 2023 season. He split time between Arizona and Minnesota last year. He's rounding out the quarterback room that is, led by Brock Purdy. Then you've got Brandon Allen and him. We'll see how that order ends up panning out. But the 49ers have their 3 quarterbacks on the roster as of now. This is his 5th playing season, 13 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in 13 games last season. So that's what we have signed, sealed, and delivered so far in terms of players. But we'll wait to see what more is to come because free agency is far from over.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of the new guys took over the 49ers social media pages during their signing and gave special shout outs to the faithful. So be sure to check out the 49ers TikTok or YouTube Shorts page to see their messages and just how excited they are to be in the Bay. All right, let's get into the re-signings from week 2 and players who've chosen to play another year at Levi's Stadium. Wide receiver Chris Conley, offensive lineman Jon Feliciano, and linebacker Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles all players who had significant roles last season. What makes you excited about seeing these three back with the Niners?
I think all around they're just great locker room personalities, I will say. And we would miss Flan's thoughts if Flan did not re-sign with the Niners. Those come out on Fridays for anybody that hasn't had a chance to check those out. Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, definitely adding some linebacker depth. He's also a big special teams guy for the 49ers. And especially with Oren Burks out, Devondre Campbell's also obviously just signed on, but there is a need for depth for the linebacker core, especially with Dre Greenlaw currently rehabbing from a season-ending injury. So we'll see how that room also pans out, but that's a big win. It's somebody that has been with the Niners for a very long time now. Then we saw Jon Feliciano end up winning the starting right guard spot for the Niners towards the end of the year, played through most of the Super Bowl games. So again, just someone that I heard from general manager John Lynch at the Combine that the 49ers were interested in bringing back, and it looks like it all worked out. And Chris Conley adds wide receiver depth, ended up being a practice squad guy to start the year, but because he was elevated so often, ran out of elevations and ended up being a 53-man roster member. And again, impact player both on the offense and special teams. So I know the 49ers were very enthusiastic about those three players.
Now, as for the free agents who've left, 4 former Niners have signed with other teams since our last episode. Defensive lineman Chase Young is now with the Saints. Linebacker Oren Burks signed with the Eagles. Wide receiver Ray McLeod is now an Atlanta Falcon, and defensive lineman Clelin Ferrell has signed with the Commanders. So with players coming and going over these past couple of weeks, Lindsay, what do you see as the 49ers' biggest needs when you look at the current roster, with still a lot of time left in the offseason and as we slowly start to look ahead to the draft?
Yeah, I think the 49ers have done a very good job of addressing the immediate needs with the players available in free agency. I still look at the offensive line as a place where depth is always a good thing. I keep thinking back to the Christmas Day game versus the Baltimore Ravens when just so many offensive linemen went down. You want to make sure that you've got a lot of very capable, experienced depth pieces that are ready to step in. I think obviously the signing of Brandon Parker is a very good thing. I think that might be a need that can be addressed via the draft, or we'll see what happens in free agency. And then I think, we saw in one of the first wave of departures, the Charlie Warner signed with the Atlanta Falcons. That's someone who was your second best blocking tight end right behind George Kittle. I know that we've got some younger tight ends on the roster, but haven't seen any additional free agent signings. That could be an area. And then with the departure of Ray McLeod, you have to wonder also who is going to be your punt returner. We'll see how that all pans out. Obviously, the 49ers have signed a couple of big contributors for special teams, but not exactly sure what their experience is specifically at the punt returner position. So we'll see how that pans out. Also, wide receiver depth, never a bad thing either.
Yes, great. Now, a side note from free agency news, but definitely entertainment news for those of you who miss watching football as much as I do. Yesterday, Netflix announced its newest series, Receiver, which follows pass catchers for the 2023 NFL season, including our very own tight end George Kittle and wide receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., along with Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So expect 8 episodes to come this summer that will be similar to the highly rated quarterback series that was released last year. This one has the same producers. Lindsay, did you get a chance to watch the quarterback series last year?
I did, and I absolutely loved it. I think it just gave you an inside look into the life of a quarterback. I know that, just working with the 49ers and being at the facility a lot, I feel like I get one picture, but there is so much more to what goes into being an NFL player. And I think it was a nice window into the lives of some of the personalities of the NFL world. And I did want to give a huge shout out to our 49ers studios team while we're talking about Receiver, because they actually helped with the production of this series. So huge shout out to Serena Soriano, Nick Shabetta, Josh Connor, Aaron Sarmiento, Stephen Garcia, and Mason Rodriguez. They all helped with the weekly micings and a lot of the footage that will be featured on this. Obviously, a lot of people involved in the production, but those are the people from our camp, so wanted to give them their shine.
So exciting. And to have George Kittle and Deebo Samuel as personalities on this one is definitely a treat for the faithful. But that will do it for today's episode. Be in the know on all the latest official 49ers news by following First and 10 on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to turn on the notifications for any breaking news updates. And thank you, faithful, for tuning in.